The golden meadow stretched into infinity, a boundless sea of softly swaying flowers that shimmered in the amber embrace of a setting sun. Each bloom seemed imbued with a quiet vitality, catching and reflecting the warm hues of twilight. The petals, delicate as silk and faintly dusted with gold, swayed in harmony with the gentle rhythm of the breeze. The air was alive with scents, heady and floral, mingled with the subtle sweetness of earth, freshly warmed by the day. Beneath it all lay a deeper, quieter hum, as though the meadow itself breathed in unison with the universe. Occasionally, the faint rustle of grass reached the ear, accompanied by the low, melodic drone of unseen insects flitting between the blossoms. At the heart of this ethereal expanse, Zephyr stood atop a gleaming white block that seemed to float just above the flowers. Its surface reflected the golden light, giving it an otherworldly glow, as if it were carved from the essence of the meadow itself. Zephyr's silhouette was sharp against the horizon, his presence commanding and purposeful. The fading sunlight bathed him in soft, honeyed hues, wrapping him in an aura of warmth that felt almost reverential. The breeze toyed with his clothing, tugging gently at the fabric as it wove around him, carrying whispers of an unspoken promise. For a moment, he closed his eyes, tilting his face toward the horizon. He stood still, letting the hum of the meadow wash over him, the rustling grass, the sighing wind, the unseen energy that coursed through this place like a pulse. When he spoke, his voice was steady, contemplative, as if each word carried the weight of a question too vast to answer. Where do we want to see the Legion at the end of the next rotation? The words hung in the air, absorbed by the meadow. The flowers closest to him seemed to lean slightly, swaying in unison, as though contemplating the question. Zephyr's gaze swept the horizon, his tone softening. Through each season, we grow. A sudden gust rippled through the field, stirring the flowers into a graceful wave. Their movements mirrored his words, a silent dance to an unseen melody. Undulating disorder, Zephyr said, his voice quieter now, tinged with a note of wonder. We do not know where we go. The block beneath his feet glowed faintly, responding to the weight of his thoughts. Zephyr extended his arms slightly, opening himself to the energy that surrounded him. This tome, he said, breathing deeply, the sense of the breeze, each petal a drop in the sea. His eyes swept across the meadow again, taking in the endless expanse of flowers that seemed to stretch beyond the limits of vision. His expression softened. As I stand, he murmured, there is no separation, no honey, no bee. A low whistle drifted on the breeze, carrying with it a sense of longing. Zephyr tilted his head slightly, as though listening to a voice just out of reach. The call of the wind, he said, his tone thoughtful. He looked down, his hand brushing lightly against the glowing edge of the block. The paper is the map, he said. As the sun dipped lower, the meadow was bathed in deeper, richer hues. The light took on a golden red tone, casting long shadows that stretched lazily across the field. The flowers closest to Zephyr seemed to reach upward, their petals glowing faintly in the fading light. A wondrous reflection, Zephyr said, his voice taking on a reverent tone. Our story begins. The petals of the flowers opened wider, as though they were responding to his words, reaching toward him in silent acknowledgement. Lotus, he whispered, the opening of the soul. In the purity of becoming, one sees through the petal, perceives the door. Zephyr raised his hand slightly, his fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. Lighting up the corridor, he continued, his voice a soft thread in the growing twilight, always the crown of curiosity to fill the dial, complete the hall. The breeze shifted again, carrying the sense of earth and life, rich and grounding. The grass beneath his feet seemed alive, moving with the rhythm of the wind, weaving seamlessly into the sea of flowers. The seamless weaving of the grass, Zephyr said, his tone contemplative, and the opening of the mold, Yoa, the emergence of empath. He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. Still, I hold no false ideas. The meta-ROM requires refinement. With careful steps, Zephyr descended from the block. The soft crunch of grass beneath his boots was grounding, pulling him into the tangible beauty of the meadow. The flowers brushed against his legs as he moved, their delicate stems bending as if to guide him. Ahead, nestled amidst the blooms, was a large crystalline eye, its surface smooth and gleaming. It hovered slightly above the ground, encased in a cluster of flowers that pulsed faintly with an inner light, as though alive. Zephyr approached slowly, his movements deliberate. He knelt before the eye, studying its intricate patterns. The surface shifted and swirled like liquid trapped within a sphere, catching the fading sunlight and scattering it into a spectrum of colors. "What I am finding," Zephyr said softly, almost to himself. "What does the passage say?" He reached out, his fingers brushing against the crystalline surface. At his touch, the eye pulsed, and a faint hum vibrated through the ground, resonating with the rhythm of the meadow. "In the dark where the dream is set," Zephyr murmured, "the giant egg, the 1,000-year door." The crystalline eye flared briefly, its light casting elongated shadows across the golden meadow. "A promise to an ancient time," he continued. "In development, we trust." The light of the eye dimmed slightly, and the breeze stirred again, moving gently through the flowers as though carrying the weight of his words. "Finally, the clock reveals what was stored," Zephyr said, his voice steadying. "The fortitude of the long con, this build on experience." Zephyr rose slowly, his gaze distant as he stepped back from the eye. He turned toward the vast expanse of the meadow, his thoughts a quiet current beneath his composed expression. "The intuition works to see," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Allow my magic to take you here." He exhaled deeply, his breath steadying as he took in the landscape, the endless flowers, the glowing horizon, the shimmering presence of the crystalline eye behind him. "Breathe in history," Zephyr said. "Elevation, the now." The flowers nearest to him swayed closer, their petals glowing faintly, as if moved by his words. "None is as it seems," Zephyr said softly, his tone tinged with wonder. "But we can move, we can at least aim to find out." The sun finally dipped below the horizon, bathing the meadow in the soft blues and purples of twilight. The flowers glowed faintly in the dim light, their quiet beauty undiminished. Zephyr stood amidst them, the crystalline eye pulsing gently behind him. The air felt alive with possibility, as though the meadow itself held its breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold.